Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode number 607 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. 100% Canadian, nasty Canadian. Mr. Beaver, if you're nasty, nasty beef. All right, today, recording day, is Friday. Not only, thank God, I'm Friday, but pre-pubcast day. It's Pubcast Eve, kids and cubs. Oh, I'm so excited. I love Pubcast so much. It's going to be a fun time. So, Friday, March 21st, 2025, spring. I didn't even think of it. Spring is sprung.
Yeah, the equinox was yesterday. Today's the first official full day of spring. So, yeah. Although it doesn't feel like it today, it did more like it felt like spring more on Wednesday. Today,
Yeah.
it's a little chilly this morning. It's -5, feels like -13 in Canada's capital right now. So welcome to spring. Welcome to spring.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, 2 days ago I was down here. I think it hit 15 or 18.
Yeah.
I did not dare take off the jacket, even though I saw people without it. There's a proverb in French. It's like, and we're still in March, right? But there's a proverb in French that goes, "En avril, ne te découvre d'un fil. En mai, fais ce que te plaît." And there's no really direct translation in English, but it sort of comes to, in April, do not shed a thread. In May, do as you please. Well, we're still March. So I kept the coat on, but I did lower the zipper down. In fact, I even let the zipper go all the way down and actually had the coat open so to let but that's about as far as I went.
Well, yesterday when I took Lola for her afternoon walk, I put on my, base layer of merino, and then I put on a soft shell jacket I've had for about, oh my goodness, almost 20 years now, and went outside with gloves on and my fedora because it was bright and sunny. Got about 20 feet outside the door, and I'm like, well, I don't need my gloves, and I better unzip my outer jacket. And within 2 minutes, I had to unzip the merino because it was just too warm. That was yesterday. Today, not so much.
Oh.
Yesterday felt like spring. Today does not feel like spring. But, yesterday around, I guess, 1 in the afternoon, or maybe it was closer to 2. No, closer to 3. It was supposed to rain all day. It didn't really rain until about 3 o'clock, and then it continued to rain nonstop for hours. And it was not pleasant, and Lola did not enjoy the rain. We went out for a short walk in the evening. But, so March showers, spring, April mud. Yeah, man.
I know. The one thing I am very happy about is that we didn't get much of a slush season, which is the season I do not like.
No, I don't think anybody...
We went from winter to mud, but not slush. I'm okay with that. I must admit that I have a personal bias because where we live, for some reason, there was a storm drain. There used to be a storm drain literally right next to our property. So all the water, because there's not the parallel, the lateral street around us is downhill. And it seems that the water comes downhill and actually turns onto our street to go towards the storm drain that's all the way at the end of our street. But it seems that there was another one that was close to our place that they removed somehow. So now there's only one storm drain for like 6 blocks or something, like all the way down the hill. And for some reason, in our right in front of our laneway, there's some type of depression. So when it's slush season or it's melt, all the water collects there, and it's not like a little bit. It's like I used to be a dancer. There's not, and we have a laneway that you can park 3 cars in. That's so long. It's one of those old like 1950 designs where they put the garage all the way in the back. I could leave from the garage, I could Usain Bolt, Donovan Bailey sprint and take a running jump a la Carl Lewis, and I in the garage dance, and I would not be able to clear. It's so huge. Sometimes I actually have to shovel through the snowbank to make a path like this, and then through the front lawn to get, because there's otherwise you're just like, welcome home. You've got 2 soakers. So, yeah, I really do not like slush season. When we had the big dump there, it's like the snowbank was like 5 foot tall, and it's like, well, let's say I can stay here for 4 hours and try to redirect all the water into the storm drain, or I can just, shovel a path through a 4-foot snowbank. The 4-foot snowbank is the easier job.
Yes,
oddly enough.
I've back in the days when I lived in places that had a driveway. Now I'm in a building, right? I definitely had to go out and chuck through the ice with a big icebreaker to channel the water to the storm drain in the street. Otherwise, you puddles everywhere, and sometimes they would get deep because I used to live there was 4 of us that lived, 4 guys. None of us married, and none of us were attached to girlfriends at the time. So to say it was a bachelor pad would be, it was a bachelor party house. And each one of us had a massive sound system in our bedroom, and we had a big one in the living room. And anyway, none of us liked to shovel really. And my buddy had a pickup truck and I had a 4-wheel drive SUV. So I just plow right through, and he would plow right through. And that would make it easier for the other 2 guys because we had a long laneway, fit 4 cars easily. So they would easily park behind us. And it worked out quite well until one winter when we had a lot of snow. And then we had our typical melt and then a freeze. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, there's just ice ruts, like big ice ruts. And when the spring came along, we all had to take a turn trying to hack out the 80-foot channel to get to the street so that we wouldn't flood the basement of the house.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I have to do.
Our laziness in not shoveling and what it did.
Well, see, that's exactly what I have to do because I live at close to a dead end street, and on a dead end street, the 4 houses to the left of us, I believe, all do that. They never shovel anything ever. They don't break the ice. So I have to do it for my house, the house next door, the house after that, and the house after that.
Well, and what people fail to
I've been
realize
doing
is
it every year for 3 years.
if you don't do it, your basement will flood.
Yeah.
Now you don't have a basement, right?
Yeah. No, we have crawl space, but they will not do it. But even our crawl space, like last year when I was in the big renovation project, we had to go and put tarp down on the bottom and actually seal out holes in the foundation brick and all that kind of stuff because the humidity. Well, our wood had mold, was starting to develop mold,
and it will only get worse if you don't deal with it.
So but they will not do it. So I've only had to do it once this year because things melted so fast. I am so grateful because every time I do it, it's like 3-4 hours out there. So spring, welcome. Make yourself at home. Sit down, stay for a while. Yes, stay for a while. Today, I didn't even get through the whole intro. I was just talking about the date. Big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvette Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.com. Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health today, sir?
Pretty good, actually. Yeah, I had a doctor's appointment yesterday. I apologize. I was going to try and record an ASMR and go live last night, but my day got away from me. I had a doctor's appointment, ran longer than we both expected, but it was productive. And then I had an
Good.
appointment in the afternoon, which ran longer than planned, and that kind of set everything, pushed everything back by a few hours. So by the time I got everything finished, it was like almost 6 o'clock, and then it was like I just didn't have the drive or the energy to sit down and record anything at that point, let alone open up my heart and mind about what's going on in my head. So I didn't get it done yesterday, and I apologize. I'm going to try and get it done today. I have more editing to do. There's more stuff that needs to be done for sure, but I think today might be okay. I might be able to get it done.
All right. I know on my end, I have to admit, yesterday I had a rough day. I won't get into it too much today. I might maybe on podcast tomorrow.
Mhm.
I know it's usually cheerful, but this, if we talk about it, this section probably won't be as cheerful. But someone I care very much about,
Mm.
apparently, I disappointed them, um, and in the process, uh, I felt it was unfair. And I got really disappointed myself, and it actually sent me into a little bit of a tailspin yesterday. So yesterday, the day started out great, but around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, took a really, really, really bad dip. Um, so yeah,
Sorry to hear that.
yeah, it really, 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 really affected me. Actually, one of the things, it's all. I'm almost like a kid in the sense that, so you tell kids like I'm really angry at you, and it's like it doesn't really matter. It's like, but I'm so disappointed in you. I was like, it's like, so yeah, when I disappoint a friend, I'm not happy, uh, but I felt I had to stand up for myself and say no. the- this is not a fair take, and that was not really well received. So, and I believe that in our entire friendship, I have never once stood up and pushed back and said, "No, that's not fair."
Hmm.
So the first time in an entire friendship doing that and said, "No," uh, kind of stung. So I will have to look back and see, honestly, and reflect on whether or not the manner in which I disappointed, or at least I'm alleged to have disappointed someone, actually is something that is it a me thing or is it a them thing? And then put that in the context of not just the day in which I disappointed, but of an entire friendship.
Mm.
And am I allowed to disappoint someone once?
So is it a question of is this a friendship of convenience for this individual?
I would like to think not.
But you're beginning to think so.
No, no, no,
Okay,
no, no.
that was
But
just the vibe I was getting.
yeah, but it might be a little more one-sided of late than I would like.
Okay.
Just but nothing. I don't think that we can't survive or manage or talk out, talk it out or whatnot. But sometimes I was not at my best because I'm a little tired. The other person was not at his best, so maybe we're not both not seeing the full picture. Let's just put it that way. With a little time and reflection, we might see that we missed something along the way.
Well, maybe it was time for a Snickers.
It could also just be that.
Fatigue, hunger. The whole world is weighing on all of us right now because of that orange menace to the south.
Yeah. And I have to admit, like I says, I am so tired. There's just been too many elections. I mean, there's just listen. I'm all for democracy like this, but like,
Give me a breather.
can we spread these out a little better?
Hmm.
So I have to admit, I am a little physically tired, not by the weight of all the heavy news, but just the sheer amount of news. I mean, when you're a political show and there's like an election
Yeah.
every 2 months for well over
It's going to be
Not
the
well
next
over a
year.
year, but yeah, it gets to be a lot.
Well,
But hey,
speaking of elections, and we all know that the prime minister is apparently rumored to call an election on Sunday.
called it.
It hasn't happened yet, but
Yes.
all things point to it could be. Did you see the exchange he had yesterday in Edmonton with a individual from the Western Standard who wants to call themselves a reporter?
I did not, because I was a little busy focusing on the Premier of Alberta's temper tantrum yesterday.
Well, there was that too, but I want you to watch and listen to this, because this, oh my, I had to watch it 3 times because each time I was yelling at my phone.
Okay,
This is brutal.
Okay.
And the best part is the prime minister is not having any of it.
great. Okay, so given that I have not seen it, just let it wash over me.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
It's quite something. Just watch.
Prime Minister, thanks for taking my question, and welcome to Edmonton.
Thank you.
And James from the Western Standard. You recently...
Sorry about the microphone.
Yeah, no problem. I'm a pretty tall guy. You have not been elected in a federal election yet, and you recently flew to Europe on government wide-body jet at the expense of at least $500,000. So the question I have for you today, and maybe I'll say this before I ask the question, these people around you all paid for that flight, and you've not been elected yet. So will you commit to refunding these taxpayers for that flight?
Well, it's an interesting question, way of framing it. Look, and I'm going to go back to, I'm going to allude to the question that was asked previously by Mr. Staples from the Journal, and the situation that we're in as a country, which is we are in an economic crisis that's brought on, sorry, I'm going to answer the question, brought on by the tariffs that have been put on Canada, actual and prospective. One of the challenges...
The economic crisis was brought on by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and you were his advisor at the time.
I think you would find...
These people did not create that problem.
I certainly... hey, nobody in Canada created that problem. Nobody in Canada created that problem. The U.S. government has decided to put tariffs on all of its closest allies. All of its closest allies. I wouldn't for a moment suggest that anyone in Canada is the cause of this. What our responsibility is to take action to react to a different world that we're in. And part of the way we do that is we build out new partnerships, new opportunities, including opportunities, and I'm going to give you a specific one, and then I don't know if you have one more follow-up, but I'll give you a specific example. It goes to my previous answer, something I also discussed with the Premier this morning, which is Canada has many advantages, and one of them is in critical metals and minerals. One of the issues is how are we going to develop the trade routes and the trade corridors rapidly in order to export those critical metals and minerals. Mm-hmm. And who are our clients for that? Who are our customers? Do we only have one customer to the south of us? The customer that's attacking us? That doesn't respect the trade agreements that they signed? Or should we develop new customers? New customers in Europe. What's required, if I may, what's required for those new customers is to build out trade corridors and infrastructure, including what I referenced in my previous answer and discussed with the Premier, is the potential to go north, go to new deep water ports. Churchill is an example, Gray's Point in Nunavut as another. And that creates a whole new set of opportunities for Albertans as a whole, for people across the country, for these hardworking people around me and those like them in the trades. And that's what my job is.
I'll take that as a no then.
No, you'll take that as a very comprehensive answer to...
Oh!
Yeah. So I love that, because that was a clap back that Pierre Poilievre would use frequently. The question was, well, to begin with, the unmitigated gall of that asshole.
Yes.
You took a recent wide-bodied flight on a jet to... Yeah, it's his job. You weren't elected. He was elected Liberal leader. The Liberal
Yes.
Party is the one that's in power. He becomes the Prime Minister.
Yes.
11 Prime Ministers have become Prime Minister in that manner in the course of our democracy. Just because you don't understand how the Westminster system of parliamentary democracy doesn't work doesn't mean the rest of us don't.
Again, the Premier of Alberta became Premier under that same system, the same way. And she did not have a seat for months, and I'm sure she traveled.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
that's the other thing.
that's
Well,
what I'm saying.
She didn't start with a seat. Like,
they have no problem when it's the Conservative Premier of Alberta doing it, and it's literally recent history, not even 5 years ago. You should be old enough to remember.
They won't even acknowledge it, though. That's the worst part. But the thing is, it's the whole, well, everybody here paid for that.
Yeah?
So tell me you don't know how the system works without telling me you don't know how the system works. He's the Prime Minister. It's his job to set up trade routes because our current largest trading partner is stabbing us, not in the back, but in the face. So what are we going to do?
Repeatedly.
Right. Yes. So what are we going to do? First, we're going to defend ourselves by doing the same thing back and then opening up new trade routes. That was a non-question. It was bullshit. And then he goes, well, it was just created by Justin Trudeau. I love his response. No Canadian created these tariffs.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
This was created by Donald Trump.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I think also the question, that was a nice pivot for him because the question was sort of like, Justin Trudeau destroyed the entire economy, not just, was not responsible for the tariffs, but he was able to bring it onto ground. Here's the thing, right? Let's do a couple fact checks here, right? Nobody voted for this guy. Over 130,000 Canadians did vote for this guy.
You could have done it too if you signed up. All you had to do was sign up.
It wouldn't even have cost you a cent. All you had to do was sign up. So you chose not to participate
in democracy
in the only way, really, according to the Westminster parliamentary system, that you could potentially directly vote for a prime minister.
Correct. It's the only way.
You're not directly voting for a prime minister. You're voting for a leader of a party. But because of the system, the leader of the party that controls the House, that controls the confidence of the House, becomes the prime minister. Therefore, yes, you are voting.
It's a rare occasion.
You're voting de jure for a prime minister, but you're voting de facto for a party leader. That is the vote. If you choose to not exercise your right to vote, then don't complain, number one. But you had the chance. But don't say no Canadians voted or this guy's unelected. This guy is elected. He's elected as leader of the party. And because this party controls the confidence of the House, this person therefore becomes the prime minister. And it has been the case since the dawn of time in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Since Canada has been Canada, and the Westminster parliamentary system even predates that. And this is like centuries old.
Correct.
Right? So this is not new. Number one. Okay. Number two, throughout her entire political career, 2022 by-election, Danielle Smith received 6,919 votes to gain her seat. Then in the 2023 general election, she got 13,315 votes to gain her seat. Previously in 2012, 10,094 votes. Danielle Smith has had, 11,000 roughly, plus another 7,000, 8,000, plus another 13,000, 31,000 people vote for her in her entire political career. Marc Carney had 131,000 Canadians vote for him in one night.
Correct.
He is way more legitimate than she is in terms of number of Canadians who have voted.
Exactly.
So let's just STFU about that BS.
Look,
number two,
you don't understand the system doesn't mean that it's broken. You need to, use this thing called Google.
You're a journalist.
No, he's not.
Is your duty? No, they represent themselves as journalists.
Okay, fine.
If you're going to represent yourself as a journalist, it is your duty to know this.
Correct. You need to know how the system works. Otherwise, you're just a gaslighting asshole.
Duty. Your job as a journalist is to provide and convey information. In order to do that, you actually have to know the information. You actually have to care about the truth enough to actually care enough to actually go and find out the information.
When they get bent out of shape, the prime minister is traveling around the world. Yeah, that's his job. The only time I ever got bent out of shape about Stephen Harper traveling to another part of the world, the only time, was when he insisted that he take his limo on the plane to India.
Now I'm not feeling so bad about that.
Well, now, but at the time, I mean, now I think, okay, good idea. But at the time,
Maybe.
it pissed me off because it was a new precedent set. And it had never been done before. And it cost us another $1.5 million to do it.
It did.
But in hindsight, it's the way to go from here on out.
In one way, yes. In another way, Modi was, I'm not sure if Modi was the prime minister at the time that Stephen Harper did that.
I believe he was. I believe
he might have been. Modi's been there for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure. But, Modi and Harper since have become very, very good friends because Modi was on the IDU website until very recently.
Well, and Modi, of course, accusing the prime minister's plane of being loaded with cocaine.
Yes.
After not having set foot on it.
Yes. That I'm sure that was very, very helpful to Pierre Poilievre at the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now,
so
on this thing,
if Pierre Poilievre ever becomes prime minister, we make an accusation that his plane is filled with cocaine every time he gets on it, or whiskey, one or the other. Like, come on.
Yeah.
How childlike do you have to be?
Exactly. Now, here, he's not elected. We have a caretaker government. No, we don't have caretaker government.
It doesn't exist in this country.
No, we do have caretakers. Yes, once the writ is drawn.
Yes.
Until the next government is sworn in. A change in prime minister or a change in party leadership does not make a caretaker government. And once again, Danielle Smith was not leading a caretaker government until she got her seat, did she? So all these things, you literally have really, really recent experience, Alberta. You should know this. All right. Then, right? We paid 1/5 of it, whatever $1 million or whatever for that flight. We all paid for that flight. Are you going to return that money? Okay, let's look at this interesting double standard here that's going on. The Marc Carney, even though he's not yet an MP, needs to go far and above the public disclosure stuff like this and actually tell the entire Canadian public what are all his holdings, how much of each, and how much they're worth. Nobody has ever been asked to do that ever before.
No.
Ever.
No, this is a first.
This is a first, right? He needs to do that. He's the prime minister now. He's got to. This is not a rule that applies to the prime minister. It's a rule that applies to MPs. As prime minister who's not yet an MP, he's already done it. Filed the paperwork, the part that he's supposed to comply with as an MP, even though he's not an MP. So for that, he is the prime minister and he has to go now. But when it comes to representing Canada on the world stage, for example, during a trade war, well, then he's not the prime minister and he's not entitled to have his travel covered by the Canadian taxpayers. That he has to refund personally.
Yeah. Because,
funny how he's the prime minister. Yeah. Funny how it's the prime. Yeah. Funny how he's the prime minister when it is you want to get access to his documents so that you, Brian, or the Western Standard, or Rick Bell, or Danielle Smith can tell us how the prime minister is so corrupt and conflicted rather than waiting for the ethics commissioner to tell us whether or not he is. But he is not the prime minister when he wants to travel to Europe to try to negotiate actual other markets for the product that you guys are destroying yourselves trying to protect.
Well, and let's not
help
forget
him, help you.
What
help
is the
him,
raison
help you.
d'etre for the Western Standard, other than to throw mud at Ottawa constantly, is they are beholden to oil monopolies, right?
Exactly.
And who buys most of the oil?
South.
At deeply discounted prices.
Well, that's the thing, right?
So now we have a pipeline that the Liberal government built to Tidewater. We can ship that oil anywhere we want. We don't have to sell it to the U.S. at a discount. We can sell it at market value to whomever we want now.
But they're not happy with that. They kept on saying they wanted that. They've been saying for a long time they wanted it, but now that they got it, they're not happy, right? They keep on talking about sending oil north, east, and west, but they're really pissed off about it no longer going south for some reason.
That works.
Mhm.
Funny how
So
that works.
here's the question. Why does the Western Standard want the Prime Minister of Canada, who, by the way, was cleverly adopting Smith's language about, going north, south, and, finding all these markets? Because isn't that what they've been saying? Gee, if only they had built that liquid natural gas terminals, we would be able to be sending gas to Japan right now. It's like, okay, well, that's what he's trying to do, except for not only oil and gas, but critical minerals and steel and aluminum and potash and canola and all that type of stuff, especially canola, considering that you just got hit with 100% tariff from China.
Yeah. And apparently they're negotiating that as we speak.
Yeah. Well, apparently it's strictly on some like canola seed, which is not that bad. And according to Danielle Smith, if you want to believe something that she says is being true, apparently Shell is about to open a plant, I think sometime in July, that will be biofuel that will be using canola, and apparently will be using the exact same amount in tonnage that is actually being shipped to China right now. So it might not be that big a hit, but it seems, if one is to believe what Danielle Smith says is true, which is a stretch. So it's not like she hasn't lied to her people left, right, and center.
Stretch.
Yeah. So why do you want the Prime Minister of Canada to have to pay for his own flight to be able to negotiate new markets for your stuff?
Yeah. Well, and
they're not helping themselves here.
So Danielle Smith has been back and forth to Mar-a-Lago how many times, and then went to PragerU to appear in a podcast with Ben Shapiro.
And then had 3 of her staff go to the Sunday, the prayer breakfast thing.
And all of that paid for by Alberta taxpayers. Should they be reimbursed? Should she take the money out of her pocket? Because nobody's asked the Western Standard guy that question.
Right? Again, it's so utterly ridiculous. It's just not serious. So, yesterday, as we mentioned, right, the Prime Minister was going to be going down to Edmonton. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wow, what a pretty good idea, because we seem to have 2 premiers who are rather freelancing.
Yeah, they've been kind of, well, one of them has been basically, after having a meeting with the Prime Minister, has kind of lurked back into the shadows.
Yeah, a little bit.
The other one got smacked.
Yeah, yesterday the other one got smacked hard, really hard. And I've been telling you about his schedule, right? Dofasco, steel, right before going to France, then meeting with the sovereign, then meeting with the leader of the UK, then flying to Nunavut and making an announcement to be able to assert our Arctic sovereignty and improve our military position. Then a meeting with the U.S.-Canada Relations Council. Then, gee, what is he going to do on that exit? Oh, flying to Edmonton. Are we? To have a meeting with the other premier who apparently seems to have a love for freelancing. I do not see what that's there.
Well, I'll put it up bigger so you can see it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was mid-sentence.
Oh, sorry, keep going. I was just putting this up for after you were done.
But I don't know what it is.
No.
Okay,
keep going, and I will read this once you are finished. That's what I was trying to say.
I understood you.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay. So, Marc Carney was going to Edmonton, and he was announced that he was going to have a meeting with Danielle Smith, as I mentioned, right, the other premier that's going rogue. So I assume that one of the reasons for this meeting is to try to see if they can get her on board in some way. all this was brilliant. Really, really brilliant. The one thing I did not expect to happen was this, Mr. Grizzly, and I've just sent you a little something. If you could put on, please.
Just a second.
But the Prime Minister made a special stop somewhere along the way, and this one must have, I am sure, again, Jenny Byrne and Pierre Poilievre throwing ketchup against the wall.
Just like
Moment of appreciation.
this is my moment in the show.
Someone take a look off.
Oh, it's fantastic. Living the dream. Best sport in the world, best team in the world, best country in the world.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who are just losing their shit over that yesterday, which I think is hilarious.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, really losing their shit. And so much so because, you know, Mr. Grizzly, how it is that these people just love to copy the Americans.
Mhm.
Well, I have something for you. I don't know if you saw it yesterday, but this one is going to make you laugh. So I have 2 more links for you here, Mr. Grizzly. It will be the second one that we'll start with here. Because when you say people have lost their minds,
Mhm.
they really have lost their minds. Now, this is from let's just put it this way, pretty much a nobody. There was a nobody account, right, on the jitter. Basically, you know, sort of blanky avatar, and you know, low followers, and not really from anywhere, and that type of thing. And you will notice, for those who are seeing it on screen, if you remove the first and the last letter of the handle, you have a really interesting word. Their handle is NCUNTE.
Mhm. Yeah.
So advertising who you are.
I'll put this up on the screen. But Kamala never worked at McDonald's, but for Canada. Rolling on the floor, laughing my ass off. Conservatives are desperate and super mad that Carney got hockey covered before PP. Marc Carney never played any level of hockey except house league. Come on, stop it. He can't skate better than a nan on a field trip for her grandkids. This dude is pure fraud. Ryan Garrettson. Carney plays hockey with energy and vigor this country needs right now to succeed.
With an eye roll, of course.
Effing loser can't even cross over. It's like he's skating on water. He's a fraud. Okay. He's wearing his
I'm going to let you handle this one.
He's wearing his goalie skates because he's a fucking goalie. So you know what it's like trying to skate in goalie skates? Out playing forward on goalie skates? I've done it. It's not easy. Goalie skates are meant to slide back and forth. You're not doing fancy shit in goalie skates. Put regular skates on and you do the fancy shit. As a goaltender, you are one of the best skaters on the ice because you have to be super mobile on your feet and able to get up and down really quickly. I know. I've been doing it since 1977 when I started playing goal. Prior to that, I was defense, and prior to that, I was a centerman.
This is where it's really
jealousy and bullshit by a bunch of idiots who've never played the game, clearly. And he played NCAA Division I hockey for Harvard as a goalie on a partial hockey scholarship. For references, U of A Golden Bears hockey university sports is on par with NCAA Division III on the upper end. He's played higher than the Oilers' current E-bug. So yeah, it's just these wannabe losers who have never amounted to anything in their miserable fucking lives want to pick on a guy because, well, he's not skating like the NHLers. Maybe because he's never played in the NHL. And the reason he didn't get in goal for that, do you really think the Prime Minister of Canada would be allowed by the RCMP, his security detail, to get in the nets of an NHL team? They wouldn't allow it. They wouldn't allow it because there's too much possibility of risk of injury.
Unless all the players sign something saying, hey, that we're only going to shoot this hard, and then you get the visuals. Well, gee, they wouldn't really take that shot.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
a goal,
It's like
right?
it's a lose-lose situation. Somebody
Exactly.
somewhere is going to be pissed off because they're jealous little punks.
Okay. Now, the first link in that one is actually the Prime Minister in the skate, in goalie skates. And this is why I wanted to hand that one to Mr. Grizzly, because, hey, it's convenient to have a goaltender on the show.
Yeah, well, that helps.
Now, watch, they're focusing on the skating, but watch the stick handling.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it?
That's the whole clip. They're
okay.
probably going, why didn't he bring his regular skates? Because he's a goalie. He probably only has his goalie skates.
Oh, that's a shame. That's not the one I wanted to show. There's some with him like skating around and then stick handling the puck and then shooting it into the net.
That was the one that was
his shot's pretty good for a goaltender.
You tend to be good at learning how to handle the puck correctly as a goalie.
Well, yes,
I've actually got a pretty good shot for a goaltender. So yeah, it's all just jealousy and horse shit, and they gotta find something to complain about. If they aren't complaining, they're not happy. They're happy when they're miserable and complaining. These are people who need more therapy than me. Because I'm happy when I'm happy. You think I like being in this frame of mind right now? I hate it. I don't like having to get upset over stupid shit like this. I don't like it when I have to correct people on how our parliamentary system works. Basic civics, folks. Basic civics. And here, how cool is this? One of our viewers, Jason, said, I failed civics. He says, I've learned more about civics watching this show for the last 3 years than I ever did in school. So thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's high praise indeed. Thank you very much, because he says, look, right here, I put it on the screen. I failed civics in school. I've learned everything I know over the last 3 years from these lads. So thank you, Jason. We appreciate that. We are here to help inform people, not teach, but inform. And by giving you the information, you require information to know how to make an informed decision.
That's in your best interest.
You need to know how the system works. If you know how the system works, well, you can make an informed decision. If you don't know how the system works, how do you make an informed decision? I'm voting for Carney. I'm voting for Pierre Poilievre. Do you live in his riding? No, I live in Lethbridge. Then you can't vote for Pierre Poilievre. It's impossible to vote. And if you do vote for Pierre Poilievre, you're in violation because you don't live in his riding. You cannot vote for that man. You can vote for your local MP, your local Conservative MP, if you want to cast a ballot for the Conservative Party, but you cannot vote for Pierre Poilievre. You could have voted for Marc Carney, but you chose not to get a membership in the Liberal Party. Therefore, you took away your democratic right to exercise your freedom. So screw you. Screw you, screw your attitude, screw your pathetic excuse for a miserable existence. Go and seek therapy. Talk to your doctor. Get some help. Because if you continue to be that angry about things that A, you know nothing about, and B, you have a mere modicum of control. You could have had a say in who was the next Liberal leader, thereby who was the current Prime Minister, but you chose not to, and all you're going to do is sit and scream and yell about it, and then when he assumes the position of Prime Minister, you lose your shit and pick on everything he does, and then demand that he shows every asset for every cent he's ever earned in his entire life. You're pathetic. You need to seek help. I weep for you because your life is miserable. You need therapy. You need to take a deep look inside yourself. And examine your reason for that. Why do you do those things? Why do you insist on making your life miserable by hating something that somebody else does for the benefit of you? Well, I can't believe he spent that money to fly to Europe. Yeah, to make sure you still have a job, you dumb fuck. And here's the thing. I don't care which party is in, well, If we had a progressive conservative federal party, I wouldn't care who was in power when it comes to prime minister flying all over the world to secure trade deals. If we had a progressive conservative party, this is the Reform Party, and they are not good for Canadians because they're Trump wannabes. They're maggots. They want to be fascist. They want Gilead. Project 2025 is well underway in the United States of America.
Yep.
And the guy who drafted it is dancing in the streets at how happy he is that it's going faster than he ever expected it to. So what I'm saying is, if it's a progressive conservative leader who's in power, if it's a Green Party leader who's in power, a Liberal, NDP, I don't give a shit who it is, as long as they're progressive enough to make sure that they do the best for the average Canadian.
Mm-hmm. As Mr. Grizzly said, by the way, when he says the guy's dancing in the street, that person's name, just a little aside, his name is Paul Dans. His quote, "It's actually way beyond my wildest dreams. It's not going to be the easiest road to hoe going forward. The deep state is going to get its breath back. But the way that they've been able to move and upset the orthodoxy and at the same time really capture the imagination of the people, I think portends a great 4 years." So that's how happy that guy is.
Yeah.
I found the clip of the skate with with Prime Minister Carney taking a few shots. Just scoop right in.
He skates like a goalie because he's in goalie skates and he's a goalie.
Yep. I know. It's like these people, they will. It's like, he never played hockey. It's like there was actually from Harvard. There was actually a tweet out.
Mhm.
Feature mark, like former alumni played Division I. It's like really? Yes. Let's see, he's 60 now, so about 40 years ago, he faked all his hockey skills to get a partial scholarship to Harvard to play Division I. He actually thought that he would be prime minister all those years ago and had Harvard doctor and all the NCAA doctor everything to say he played Division I when he really didn't. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And kids and cubs, now I'm going to have to ungracefully duck because I got excited and moved my hands because I'm French and knocked the mouse off the desk. So dive.
Go fetch that mouse. Go fetch that mouse, young man. I'm going to bring this back that I brought in earlier, and I didn't get a chance to read it yet, but this was from this in regards to the meeting that Danielle Smith had with the Prime Minister. So this is Danielle Smith's tweet. At his request, I met with Prime Minister Marc Carney yet today. We had a very frank discussion in which I made it clear that Albertans will no longer tolerate the way we've been treated by the federal Liberals over the past 10 years. I provided a specific list of demands the next Prime Minister, regardless of who that is, must address within the first 6 months of their term to avoid an unprecedented national unity crisis. Now, what I am trying to do is discover if that is fake or real. And it's not. I have the actual tweet right here.
Real.
And I have the full thing. And I'm going to share it with you right now. So that was just a screen cap. Here's the full thing. This is the full tweet. This includes guaranteeing in Alberta full access to oil and gas corridors to north, east, and west, repealing Bill C-69, aka No New Pipelines Act, lifting the tanker ban off the BC coast, eliminating the oil and gas emissions cap, which is a production cap. No, it is not. Scrapping the so-called clean electricity regulations, ending the prohibition on single-use plastics, abandoning the net zero car mandate, returning oversight of the industrial carbon tax to the provinces, halting the federal censorship of energy companies. Like, she just goes on and on and on. And this is all legit. I'll put the link in the chat to anybody who wants to read it in depth. It is unbelievable, the temper tantrum she just threw, the shade she just threw towards the Prime Minister, threatening a national unity crisis. Oh, girl, you have no idea the mire you just stepped into.
Well, here's the thing. Unfortunately, you scooped me with that one, but that's okay.
I thought this was a collaborative effort.
I know, but
I'm getting a coffee. I'll be right back.
okay. All right. So that tweet clearly is a sign that that meeting with Danielle Smith did not go well at all. At all. Because that is an epic meltdown. And not only was that an epic meltdown post-meeting, that was an epic meltdown. She had an epic meltdown pre-meeting because before she met with him, she had a little press conference, right, in which she was saying all these similar things. You know, the federal government needs to do this, needs to do that. And I haven't met him yet like this, but I'm going to make it very clear to him that I'm done. So Danielle Smith was definitely thinking that she was going to enter a room and do her domination play like she does with everyone else, and that this was going to go over very well with Marc Carney. Now, as we mentioned before, Marc Carney has had a breakfast with Doug Ford, and Doug Ford seems to have tampered down certain things. But Danielle Smith is just not that kind of girl, quote unquote. I know she's a woman. Not that kind of girl is the title of the song. That's why, quote. You know that she's going to balk at everything because she has not once shown that she has any will or desire whatsoever in any way, shape, or form to be on Team Canada. None.
Right. The rest of her tweets, the last 2 paragraphs, I'm just, what? I also made it clear that Alberta, as owner of the resource, will not accept an export tax or restriction of Alberta's oil and gas to the United States, and that our province is no longer agreeable to subsidizing other large provinces who are fully capable of funding themselves. Lastly, I made it clear that federal mismanagement of Jasper and Banff National Parks resulted in last year's tragic wildfire in Jasper, and it is endangering Banff, and the situation must be rectified immediately. With the federal election about to be called, I encourage all Albertans to get involved in what is likely one of the most pivotal and important elections in our nation's history, and to support the party and candidates that have consistently advocated for freeing Alberta from the federal overreach and the repeated economic attacks our province has faced from Ottawa over the last 10 years. What the hell? Lady, you subsidizing other large provinces. Okay, you don't do that. Jason Kenney, the former premier, who when he was in the cabinet for Stephen Harper, rewrote the rules. All taxes go into a federal pool, and then they get doled out according to those who require them the most. You do not subsidize anyone. You cannot dictate to the Prime Minister of Canada that export taxes cannot be levied. It does not work that way.
She's the stay on your own. Remember, she's the stay in your own lane lady.
Yeah.
So, before
like the unmitigated gall of this woman. I can't believe this, and yet I just read it, and she said it. 17 hours ago, she said this. She tweeted this live. This is what she said she talked about with the Prime Minister. This is the first for something like this. I've never seen this before. We're supposed to be Team Canada? She's like, no, I'm just Team Alberta. Screw everybody else. And she's been like that since day one of this tariff threats. She wouldn't show up to the meeting. She called in. And Doug Ford said she's not really on our side. Paraphrasing, of course.
Mm-hmm.
She is not on Canada's side. She's on her side. That's it. Saying we're not going to accept any tariffs or export taxes. You don't get to decide that. Who the hell does she think she is? This is just unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this. It's astonishing to me that she thinks she has that kind of power and control. She's the premier of a province, not the prime minister of the country. And again, the prime minister can't just do whatever he wants. She seems to think she can do whatever she wants. When is she going to pay the piper? When is she going to answer for this?
Okay. So, according to the National Observer, Lisa Johnson and Jack Farrell, prior to meeting Marc Carney, this is what happened. Alberta's government is proposing a law it says would ban federal employees from going on any oil-related sites, from wellheads to corporate head offices, but critics say the province doesn't have the legal right to do so. Premier Danielle Smith said Wednesday the goal is to keep federal staffers away from any place where oil and gas production and emissions data might be located. Quote, Alberta will do whatever it takes to shield our economy from the Liberals' growth-killing lunacy. She hasn't met with him yet.
No.
So this is her entering a new territory, lifting up her leg and peeing over everything, saying mine. She said it's necessary because she doesn't trust how the federal government will calculate greenhouse gas emissions as it continues to craft its proposed emissions cap. Quote, because the federal government has come up with different numbers at different times for their own purposes. That's not why the federal government collects data, not for their own purposes. And when you say for their own purposes, based on your previous statement, I'm guessing that those purposes are sinister and inherently anti-Albertan. We think that we actually need to get real data, and because we're the ones on the ground, we'll be the ones able to do that work, she said. Now, the reason she is saying this bullcrap is because she collects, so far the data being collected is being collected by the companies and it's collected on their sites. But since then, we have discovered, because yay, science, that if we actually measure the air around, we actually know better how much emissions there are. And all the studies have shown is that when you actually take the air off the ground, you actually measure the air, you actually get way more accurate data. And we've all found out that the emissions are way higher than we thought they were.
Oh, yes.
Particularly for methane. So she doesn't want the federal government collecting data according to the most modern and most up-to-date standards, which happen to reveal that emissions are higher, and particularly emissions of the more dangerous of the two between methane and GHGs. She doesn't want that to happen. So she describes this as the federal government collecting data for its own purposes. And, we're the ones on the ground. We'll be able to get that work. We actually need to get the real data, she says. But it gets even better. The premier said emissions data is the property of the Alberta government, and if a private company doesn't comply with the new rules, the province could make it a condition of its license. She did not specify which licenses or leases might be under threat. She said her government's proposed bill, if passed, will bind federal employees, but later Wednesday, the government said in an email it won't apply, quote, when enforcement officers have a lawful right, justification, or excuse to enter facilities to inspect and or investigate, which they have. So this is a big thing of action for action's sake that actually doesn't mean anything. The legislation introduced Wednesday by Justice Minister Mickey Amory, who apparently has a couple of things that should be looked into himself, doesn't specify which federal employees it may or may not target. Rather, it just says the legislation, quote, binds the government of Canada, which, I'm sorry, provinces don't pass legislation that binds the government of Canada. The government of Canada passes laws that binds the provinces. You are the junior partner in this relationship. The junior partner in this relationship. Smith said last fall that Alberta would challenge Ottawa's emissions cap in court if or when it becomes law. And how many times have you challenged Ottawa, and how many times have you lost because your interpretation of the Constitution happens to be fantasy thinking, which you certainly made many press conferences a couple of years ago saying you don't believe in?
She's delusional at best.
Yeah.
Psychotic at worst.
with the number of times that she said something's unconstitutional, then challenged it in court and got to the Supreme Court and had her nose wrapped with Alberta in general on these types of issues with a rolled up newspaper, maybe you should not be so confident in your own interpretation of what you think is constitutional. I would not have the luxury of the smug confidence that she has, given the number of losses that she's picked up. Quote, Eric Adams, who's a constitutional law expert and professor at the University of Alberta, said the province can't, quote, elbow judges out of the way and undermine or subvert federal legislation, no matter how much it might disagree with it. Quote, I fully support the Alberta government being able to launch whatever constitutional challenges it wishes against the federal legislation, Adams says in an interview. It's their right if they want to blow Albertans' taxpayers' money on legal wild goose chases. Hey, that's their right to do it. It's up to you as Albertans to vote them out. If they do that, hey, you're wasting our money on stuff you can't win. And the only reason that you're creating all these legal court cases is not to win because you can't win, but it's for the PR opportunity. Because while that thing is in court for 2, 3, 4 years, every time you go out and you say, we're fighting the federal government, send us money. It's a fundraising PR thing. And you're making the taxpayers pay for it. And you're making the taxpayers pay for it twice. You're making the taxpayers pay for it, well, 3 times actually. Once, but all the legal costs, then all the lost opportunity costs, right? Had the federal Conservatives not said, activist judges, and no, we're not going to deal with the Indigenous people, and actually did what the court told them, says, listen, you can have your pipeline, but you need to do these things in this order. No, we refuse to do that. Had you just done them, you would have had the pipeline. How many more years would we have the pipeline earlier than we had? What's the lost opportunity cost for all of that? Taxpayers, you paid that too. So the whole court process, through all 3 levels, all the way to the Supreme Court, all the lost opportunity for years upon years upon years, and then all the people that donated to that party based on that lie, that grift, hey, we're going to build you a pipeline, and then they never did, not even an inch. All of those political donations are very, very, very generously subsidized by you with the political donation tax credit.
Yeah.
You pay for it 3 times. And on top of that, you pay for it 4 because you pay the salaries and everything that keeps these people operating to send you on these legal wild goose chases that are nothing but grifting opportunities to get you to open your wallet. They are literally fleecing grandma and grandpa. And they're getting for you to pay for it at every stage. You want to know why Alberta is not Norway? Because you're blowing all your money and doing this stupid shit. Rather than just saying, oh, well, the court said this, we have to do it this way. Okay, let's just do it this way and get it done. You start out the process seeking for it to go to court instead of getting it done. When you start a project like this and you don't even bother to have a meeting with the Indigenous community, you've just condemned yourself to court cases for years. You actively choose this. You know this. There's no way you can't possibly know it. There's God, Lord knows there's enough precedent. But you actively choose to blow millions upon millions upon millions and years upon years upon years of time to actually on this so that you can raise money for yourselves.
It's a grift. The whole thing is a grift.
It should be criminal.
I agreed.
What I don't think is open for the province to do is to take a valid piece of federal legislation, which is fully constitutional, and through sleight of hand suggest that they've passed a law to now make it impossible for that federal legislation to operate. That's simply not the way our federation operates. That's Eric Adams, constitutional law expert and professor from the University of Alberta. University of Alberta economist and law professor Andrew Leach agreed, adding that he thinks the government's goal is to, quote, have us entertain the idea that they could ignore federal laws, much like Scott Moe did when he made the good people of Saskatchewan believe that they would not be remitting to the federal government the carbon fees. So yeah, you still are, because if the government of Saskatchewan does not remit them, regardless of how they collect them or don't collect them, they get taken to court. Which means you get to pay for that court case too if that happens, but the money is still going. It's just now hidden. They're telling you you're not paying it anymore. But you are. You are, Blanche. You are. There's no real mystery here, said Leach. There's no way they can do what they're claiming they can. The whole premise of it is offside. Opposition NDP Justice critic Irfan Sabir told reporters the government is putting industry in the difficult position of being told to breach federal law, all in the name of, quote, political grandstanding. Even a first-year law student will tell you that one order of government, especially the province of Alberta, cannot bind the government of Canada with its legislation, said Sabir. He said courts are there to settle jurisdictional disputes. The province just can't write on a piece of paper and think that it will bind the government of Canada, he said. Smith's government has said it is determined to protect Alberta's jurisdiction over its natural resources and that the emissions cap could lead to a mandated production cut. No, not if you reduce your carbon intensity, it won't. But that involves you doing work. And you're lazy.
Go figure.
The Premier said Wednesday the latest legislation is a warning to Ottawa that Alberta won't tolerate, yeah, you will, unconstitutional overreaches, and that it's an invitation to help build pipelines across the country. Quote, if the new Prime Minister wants to resume an old fight, well, we will. We'll fight tooth and nail, she said. You never put down the gloves. Boo-boo kitty. Under proposed regulations from Ottawa, producers would need to cut their emissions by about 1/3 below 2019 levels by 2032. See, it's an emissions cap, not a production cap.
Correct.
The more you cut your emissions, the more you can produce. So chop, get to
and
work,
that's what I said.
talk.
Reading her tweet, there's a lie right there. It is not a cut on production. It's a cut on emissions. There's a difference.
That's been a lie since day one.
Yes.
Repeat the big lie often enough.
People start to believe it.
The final oil and gas greenhouse pollution cap level is expected to be published before the end of 2027. Alberta's oil and gas sector is responsible for the largest share of the country's greenhouse gas emissions, 31%, but she doesn't want to lift a damn finger to help that. Does she? So she does all of this. Yells and screams and whatnot. And I'm going to get some cubs. Actually, show you a couple of moments, choice ones, from the press conference. Because, again, what amazes me the most about Danielle Smith, first of all, again, the casualness and ease with which she lies. And also the frequency. I mean, she just lies reflexively.
Oh, yeah. It's
about things she doesn't even need to lie about. She just lies.
Yeah. She's incapable of being truthful. It's just a thing with her.
Yeah.
And her tell is always I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, that's one of them. Or when the hands start ringing.
Yes, that's the other one.
Right.
Did you take any kickbacks? No. Well, actually, the tickets are a kickback. That's a kickback. Well, it's allowed under. It's still a kickback.
Allegedly.
Oh.
Allegedly. Don't sue us. Allegedly.
Go ahead. Try and sue us for telling the truth, and watch how big we get.
Well, yeah, that true Streisand effect as well, right?
Right.
So, we had a little press conference. I won't start with the initial announcement in there, but let's go to 11:28 till about 15:41. There are several little exchanges here. I'll kind of set it up. Things to watch for, right? She seems to be indicating that there's one single source of truth with regards to everything, and that it would be her. As we mentioned, she doesn't actually want people to calculate the amount of methane or GHGs actually in the air. She does not want that to be the basis. She's saying this is the one where she says that the numbers are for the government's own purposes, but she doesn't say what those purposes are specifically like this, but you can gather from the context, it's to keep us down. And then she has some really interesting, because the article said, if we collect the data, it's our data. But she has this very interesting theory of what data actually is. Mr. Grizzly, if you will.
We manage. Thanks, Michelle. We'll go to Lisa, then to Shay.
Thanks. I'm hoping you can just clarify something, because when we asked during the tech briefing, they directed these questions to you, which was kind of odd because it seems to me like a very technical question. How does the reporting on emissions data work currently in the private sector? Like, does the current emissions reporting process necessarily involve federal officials needing to physically go into these private facility, or would banning these federal employees not affect emissions reporting in any way, practically?
Well, this is part of the issue, is that we don't have a single source of truth for emissions data. We found that when we were looking at our methane emissions. By our calculation, which is looking at source materials, they had reduced their emissions 45% from 2005 levels 2 years early. The federal government hired some outside organization to do some aerial scanning, and they came up with a different number. And so if we're going to have these kinds of disputes, we know that there needs to be a single source of truth when it comes to actual on-site data, and we're going to collect that, and then we'll make sure that it is shared. But we believe that because the federal government has come up with different numbers at different times for their own purposes, we think that we actually need to get real data. And because we're the ones on the ground, we'll be the ones able to do that work.
So this bill doesn't explicitly ban emissions data reporting by private companies to the federal government.
They will report to us. It's our data, and then we will report
Okay.
to the federal government. Remember, energy companies, especially since we own the resource.
It's our data. It's collected by the energy companies right now
Mm-hmm.
in order to report back to the federal government. But it's
fine.
our data,
Uh-huh.
she says.
Yeah.
Number one. Let's keep going. But keep in that, because data takes a whole lot of other definitions. This is just the beginning of inventing a new definition of data.
And we permit the resource. They develop the resource on our behalf. And so in doing so, we have an obligation to collect the data, and we'll report it to the federal government. But
that still doesn't answer, like, is this currently happening? Like, is this a hypothetical ban on if sometime in the future the federal government decides to send officials into the Suncor offices in Calgary? Like, this is a hypothetical ban of something that isn't even happening?
I don't know if it's hypothetical. I mean, we observed when they were wanting to do water testing that they were going onto people's property in Saskatchewan and doing water testing as a way of trying to, I think, develop some pretext for new emissions data they were going to come in with on fertilizer. And the Saskatchewan government did something quite similar in saying federal agents are not going to be allowed to just show up on people's private land to start testing their dugouts and water. And so this has already been demonstrated in the past that there have been issues, and we just are anticipating that if there are future issues, we're closing that door. The emissions data, we have to remember the other part of it is the government has made it illegal for companies to celebrate their emissions reduction. The Bill C-59 I referenced, they're not allowed to proactively talk about their positive progress that they're making on emissions because it's called greenwashing, and then they could also ultimately face charges. So the entity that is shielded from those laws are the provincial government. So
Greenwashing is a thing, Danny.
Yes. But again, notice what she says. A company is not allowed to talk about its achievements or success, or else that is called greenwashing. That's not what the law says.
No.
The law doesn't say you're not allowed to talk about it. Bill C-59, formerly known as the Fall Economic Statement Implementation Act of 2023, quote, is a Canadian bill that received royal assent on June 20th, 2024, and amends the Competition Act to address, quote, greenwashing or misleading environmental claims, placing the burden of proof on businesses to substantiate their environmental claims. So in other words, the bill says, if you've achieved it and can prove it, then please go ahead and say it and celebrate it.
Correct.
But if you say you've done it and you don't have the data to back it up, or the data confirms that you haven't done it, then you're greenwashing. And that's illegal. So Danielle Smith right now has a problem with the law that says that companies that collect data and report on it and say that they've achieved a certain milestone are not allowed to lie about it.
That's exactly what it is. So they should be able to toot their own horn in any way they see fit, because I want them to celebrate the fact that they're in compliance with the thing that the federal government is bad.
And this is
say that.
Yes, and this is in the context of her saying, right, we need one real source of data. Our data says that this company, X company or whatnot, or the sector reduced their emissions by 25%, but the federal government came in with some aerial scanning type thing and hired some company like this. And then they had different data like this in order. Well, let's just take a look here for a second here. Methane aerial scanning, particularly using techniques like gas mapping LiDAR, GML, is often considered better than traditional ground-based methods for detecting and quantifying methane emissions because, quote, it's more efficient, sensitive, and can pinpoint leak locations with greater accuracy, leading to more effective emissions reduction efforts. She does not want that to happen. The advantages: increased efficiency and speed. Because you can do it over the air, it's fast. Ground-based methods are time-consuming and labor-intensive.
Much more time-consuming, much more labor-intensive, much more, I'm going to use an old term here, I don't know what the new term is, but much more manpower required.
Yes, labor-intensive.
Labor-intensive. We need more bodies to do it.
Exactly. So you can do more faster with less resources and more accurately.
So an efficient, cost-effective manner.
But she wants there to, but it's not a true source of data, apparently. Accurate leak location and quantification. Aerial scanning provides precise geospatial pinpointing of methane emitter locations, allowing for better prioritization of repairs and a more accurate understanding of emission sources. You can actually get to the problem faster.
Correct. So,
if there's something. Yep. Aerial scanning can help identify super emitters and other sources of methane emissions. Well, considering that the oil patch is the super emitter for the entire country, I'm guessing she doesn't want that data, isn't it? Including those from abandoned or marginal wells. Ooh, we can't have that data, which are often overlooked by traditional methods. The companies don't send people to the abandoned wells to measure those emissions. Only the ones coming from the factory are the active ones, of course. While there is an initial investment, aerial scanning can lead to long-term cost savings by enabling more efficient leak detection and repair, as well as reducing the need for extensive ground crew patrols. By providing accurate data on leak locations and emission rates, aerial scanning can help improve safety for workers and communities by allowing for better planning and preparation for repairs. If you know where the gas is coming from, there's less chances that things go boom. Aerial scanning is well suited for monitoring methane emissions across large areas, such as entire oil and gas production basins and distribution networks. In summary, aerial methane scanning offers a significant advantage over traditional methods for detecting and quantifying methane emissions, leading to more efficient, accurate, and cost-effective emissions reduction efforts. And Danielle Smith apparently is against this.
Well, from Christian here, he says she's not concerned about the method, just the discovery. Yeah.
Let's keep on going because the journalist here, as you notice, is pushing back and asking questions. It's like, oh, by the way, is this hypothetical? Well, I don't know if it's hypothetical. Shouldn't you? Before you pass a law, we're doing this anticipation. Oh yeah, like those laws affecting transgender children, which were also in for something that may happen, but not something that is. According to your fantasy thinking, something that may happen according to your fantasy thinking.
Hang on a sec. I just gotta disappear for a minute here because just like
the invisibility cloak.
Is it okay to come out yet? Is it okay to come out yet?
It's just us kids and cubs here. You're okay, Mr. Muesli.
So I'm fine. All right. Okay. I'm just making sure because there's some insanity happening right now, and I don't know if my mental health can handle it.
Let's keep on going because it gets better.
Of course it does.
It actually put us into a position that if we want to be able to collect and report emissions data, we have to collect it ourselves and we have to be able to report it ourselves. So that's what we're going to do.
Thanks, Lisa. And Michelle, we're going to go to Shay. You've already had 2 questions.
What happens if a company doesn't comply?
Well, we license them, so they're going to.
I don't see anything in here that would suggest that there's a penalty for them.
Well, we can make that a condition of us doing the leases. So there's lots that you can do. There's lots that you can do in regulation.
Retroactively?
Well, but we intend to enforce the law, and I would think that the companies are probably going to be pretty happy with the fact that we're willing to take this reporting obligation off their hands. They'll probably be quite happy that because we will have a government-approved source of information that perhaps they'll be able to then talk about, they'll be able to cite us when we're talking about our emissions reduction success. So the federal government has put us into a box, and we're finding a way to be able to make sure that we're collecting the data and able to report the data with the rules that they put in place.
All right.
Okay.
And Chase, you have a question?
Yes, yeah, still questions. I guess just
I love the fact that she would not allow herself to be silenced and push back hard on that one until she was heard and answered.
Yes. Well, she wasn't, because noticed how Danielle Smith was coming with the answers. And I think the companies will be, she just completely switched to whether all that type of stuff. Now, the journalist challenges Danielle Smith on her obvious bullshit that, according, of course, to the article we just read, a first-year constitutional law student can see coming. Notice how she gets testy and lies again. And basically her premise is, let us investigate ourselves. We'll collect our own data and we will report it to the government. And that will be government-approved data for once. And maybe we can just stop all these things. Well, no, there's a law that says you have to do that. Oh, yes, but they're putting us in a box. And we're like, no. You are required to comply with the law. What you are doing, you're trying to do it too cute by half, find a way to say, I don't have to respect this law because since we permit the companies, we are allowed to go on their sites whenever we want and collect. We're allowed to do the thing that we don't want the federal government to do, to just go in like this. And that data, when we want to collect it our way for our own purposes, yes, we'll send that to the government, and that will be government approved data, and everything will be fine and perfect. That's the bullshit that she said. It is. This is not serious. It's not serious. Now, the next little section is super interesting because somebody asks them a question. Because when you pass a law, there are consequences for the law not being followed. Usually, right? Usually that's the way.
Right.
You don't pass a law to then say, well, if you break the law, nothing. If you break the law, something is supposed to happen.
Well, something should happen.
Let's continue.
a couple, following up on your answer to Lisa's question, you had mentioned federal agents just would not be able to do that. Is the suggestion there that they would be arrested, and by whom? And then just as a follow-up, while we're still in the legal sphere, Canada's top court has ruled that under the Constitution's peace, order, and good government clause, Ottawa has the authority to enact laws that impact the entire country, such as emissions. So are you anticipating any sort of legal challenge from Ottawa on this, and what is your argument to defend against
I'll let Mike talk about the trespassing, and I'll let Mickey talk about the extensive way that they've used peace, order, and good government that may not be good lawmaking, and we'd be intending to challenge.
What?
Oh, she doesn't want any video of herself saying potentially people might be arrested. She has probably. I'm just going to hand that off to the justice minister, and then some other guy. Well, not some other guy. I shouldn't say some other guy. That is not true. Mike Ellis, who's the Deputy Premier and the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services. So now part of these announcements, right, was an Infrastructure Protection Act. So part of the stuff was like for the border, right? That type of stuff, I guess. But there was this whole specific part of it that was just like to stop federal workers from coming with things so that they can measure and collect data, because it's our data. Now, I think you're starting to understand here that Danielle Smith, when she says data, it's not the actual data, right? She's saying that only us are allowed to collect data. So for her, data are the things from which she's the air, apparently, is the data, and she owns it. If she wants to take her own measurements and data, yes, that data belongs to the provincial government. If the corporations want to do that, that belongs to the corporations. She seems to claim, well, because we permit and we license like the data that the corporations collect for themselves to report to the federal government, that's actually our data. No, it isn't, Abu Kitty. That's proprietary information that belongs to the company. does not belong to you. But if you want to collect your own data, that's fine. But you collecting your own data does not mean that all the sources from which you collect the data, the air and the emissions and whatnot, belong to you too, and that the federal government is not allowed to access it. But that's apparently what she's saying. The resource is all ours. The companies are all ours. Their data is all ours. And all the air that you would want to measure around anywhere, or the water sources, or the mines, or anything that or the ground, that's all ours too. That too is data, and you can't touch that.
You can't touch any of it because I said so.
Can't touch this.
Because I said so.
Can't touch this. That's not data, darling. The air from which you pull the data to say you have data is not data. And that does not belong to the province. But she wants you to believe that it is. Keep going.
All righty.
Launch that too.
Well, you go first. Sure. Yeah, I mean, just your question was in regards to
Trespassing.
Federal agents, the thing had mentioned that federal agents would not be authorized into those centers to collect that emissions
He was really
data.
paying
I'm
attention,
wondering,
was
would
he?
there be someone that would arrest those federal officials? What's the plan there?
Well, I arrest the federal officials. I mean, look, property rights is a big thing in the province of Alberta. Let's be very clear on that. I would like to think that there'd be a level of cooperation with the federal government whereby nobody actually has to get arrested. I would say that like anything, it's about a matter of talking to people, and hopefully if there is a requirement for somebody to go on somebody else's land, that they talk to the landowner. I think it's completely inappropriate, and I agree with what the Premier mentioned in regards to Saskatchewan. Nobody should have a right to just go on somebody else's property, whether you're being directed by the federal government or not, and just go onto somebody's property and do whatever they think that they've been directed to do. So I'm not going to go down the road whether or not hypothetically somebody's going to be arrested or not arrested. Right now, we would just really hope that people in the federal government abide by, really in respect to property owners and property rights.
Thank you very much. And to the second part of your question, I mean, we have a history with the federal government and its lack of respect for Alberta's jurisdiction. We talked a little bit about Section 92 today. We talked a little bit about our exclusive ability to develop our natural resources. We've seen in the past the federal government enact nationwide legislation, which was deemed unconstitutional. We've had some recent wins in court with respect to the Impact Assessment Act. We know that the federal government did not respect the Supreme Court's decision in that regard. And what they ended up doing was making, in our view, inconsequential changes to the Impact Assessment Act in order to get around the Supreme Court of Canada's decision. We take the position that we're going to respect the court, we're going to abide by the court, especially when it is a ruling from our country's highest court. However, the federal government has not done that. And so we continue to take these measures to protect our industry, to protect the people who are looking to invest in Alberta. And quite frankly, with the decisions that the federal government has made with respect to our oil and gas industry, many companies are questioning whether they should invest in Canada. We want to make sure that Alberta is the jurisdiction that they invest in, that they know that there's a government that will defend them if they do, and we're up for the challenge and we'll be there if we need to be.
Yeah, just to follow up, I guess, taking away from that, then you do feel confident if there was such a challenge. And then also going back to the 2-kilometer deep border zone, it was designated essential infrastructure under that regulation back in January. You had mentioned something about additional powers or extra tools for peace officers. I'm just wondering what explicitly today gives, can assure Albertans that that border is safer in light of this legislation.
Well, most certainly the border is secure and it is safe, and we've done a number of measures both through public safety and through justice to make sure that that's happening. We talked a little bit about the ability for peace officers to identify threats, to lay charges if there is a suspected act of trespass, for example. We know that the peace officers will be able to, they have the tools now with the amendments in order to exercise their discretion. We can't speculate on what the peace officers will do in that area, but I certainly know that this amendment will give them the tools that they need to make those assessments, to determine if there is a threat, and to act if they need to be.
Yeah, just from a police officer's perspective, and I appreciate that.
Okay.
It really is about law enforcement. Right?
included the last one because that was supposed to be allegedly the main part of the bill, but turns out it wasn't, as you could tell by the number of questions that were asked about the other thing that was just slipped into there. So notice how she slips this one off to them. Will there be arrests? And then the guy who's the public safety guy goes, well, I don't want to get into whether or not there'll be. Why? Why not?
Why not? It's your job.
You just wrote law. I don't want to get into what the law actually says could be. Why not? You have to. You should. You wrote a law. You're announcing it. What will happen if the law is not respected? Oh, I don't want to get into that. Really? Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe because it's toothless? Right? Oh, well, we can't have the federal government's not allowed to come on people's property. Yeah, they are.
They totally are.
I mean, it's, courtesy, of course, to send a note and say we're coming, but it's not like somebody can turn around and says, no, you're not allowed. If the federal government wants to come on your property to measure something that it has a right to measure, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really? Really? Then the guy comes around, and again, always accuse your opponent of that which it is you are doing yourself, right?
Oh,
we went to the Supreme Court on the Environmental Impact Assessment Act, and well, the government is making inconsequential changes to try to get around that. Wow, they're so terrible. Rah, rah, rah. Really? I'm not sure that the gentleman who said that is actually being quite honest about that, because the decision from the Supreme Court was not a case, it was a reference. Number one, the Supreme Court was asked to consider whether the Act and one of its regulations went beyond the Parliament's legislative authority under the Constitution. This is according to the Supreme Court of Canada site, by the way. The Act and the regulation established a complex information gathering and regulatory scheme in two parts. One part, which is set out in sections 81 to 91 of the Act, establishes an impact assessment process for projects carried out or financed by federal authorities on federal lands or outside Canada. Federal government, you're not allowed to use your own method on your own lands. That happened to be located in the province of Alberta.
Yeah,
it requires the federal authority in such cases to decide if the project is likely to cause significant adverse environmental effects. If so, it must then be determined whether these effects are justified in the circumstances. The other part, which includes the remaining provisions in the Act and the regulations, outlines what projects are considered, quote, designated projects under the Act, and makes them subject to federal review automatically. Alberta's Lieutenant Government referred two questions with respect to this scheme to the province's Court of Appeal. References are when governments ask the courts for their legal opinion on a question of law, but they're not asking for a ruling. First, they asked whether the Act was unconstitutional in whole or in part as being beyond Parliament's legislative authority under the Constitution. Now, this is the Provincial Court of Appeal, which usually rules in favor of the province, because they did on the carbon tax is unconstitutional. And then you'll remember he said, we got a split decision. It's like, the 2-1 says that we're right. And then it went to the Supreme Court, and then they got smacked down. But they rode that split decision, allegedly, really hard until the Supreme Court made a lot of money off that. First, they asked whether the Act was unconstitutional or whole and in part as being beyond Parliament's legislative authority under the Constitution. The legal term for this is ultra vires, is the law ultra vires. Secondly, they asked whether the regulations were unconstitutional in whole or in part because they applied to matters entirely within the legislative authority of the provinces under the Constitution. Now, remember that Alberta is fully allowed to exploit its resources. Yes, exploit.
Correct.
But making sure that they are up to standard for export, making sure that they are up to standard to be carried across provincial lines, that's not their job. That's not part of exploiting the resource. See, for them, everything's exploiting the resource. All the environmental regulations, the pipelines, the shaking, the economics, all that. No, not all of it. You don't control all of it. Okay? So they're trying to throw anything that we do with regard to oil is us exploiting the resource, and the federal government can't say anything about that. No. It's very specific what exploiting the resource means, and you're allowed to do very specific things and not allowed to do others. They're trying to pretend that that does not exist here. So, let's see, a majority of the Alberta Court of Appeal, of course, concluded that the Act and the regulations were ultra-vires Parliament and therefore unconstitutional in their entirety. The Attorney General of Canada appealed the decision to the Supreme Court. Unlike the federal government, which can direct reference questions right to the Supreme Court, provincial and territorial governments must first direct reference questions to the courts of appeal. However, provincial and territorial opinions can be appealed to the Supreme Court as of right, automatically, which means they do not require leave, quote, or permission to be heard by the court. The Supreme Court has allowed the appeal, in part. Although the process set forth in sections 81 and 91 of the Act is constitutional, the balance of the scheme is ultra-vires Parliament and thus unconstitutional. So the process is constitutional. There are certain things in it that are not, much like when we looked at the federal court decision on the enactment of the Emergencies Act. For example, with the banking regulations, right? They deemed that the banking thing was unconstitutional. But why? Because the RCMP was able to go directly to the bank and say, we suspect we need this information. The bank gave it to them. There needs to be a judicial thing. That order should be brought to a court and say, we've believed this. Court, do you authorize us to get this information from the bank? The court says yes, boom. So it's not like the RCMP was not allowed to get the information. They just needed an independent third party to determine whether or not, in this case, for this person, that information could be. So there's nothing unconstitutional at all about RCMP getting the information from a bank in order to freeze your account. That's perfectly constitutional. They skipped a step. So next time, if they do that and follow that step, nobody will be able to say, oh my God, they unconstitutional. You can do it. It was just how they got there. This, similar. Writing for a majority of the court, Chief Justice Wagner ruled that the reference questions should be answered in the affirmative. The federal impact assessment scheme is unconstitutional in part, while the constitutionality of sections 81 to 91 of the Act was not challenged. Chief Wagner said that the process set forth therein is constitutional. However, the balance of the scheme, that is, quote, the designated projects portion, very specifically, is ultra-vires Parliament and thus unconstitutional for two overreaching reasons. First, it's not directed at regulating, quote, effects within federal jurisdiction, as defined in the Act, because these effects do not drive the scheme's decision-making functions. Second, the defined term effects within federal jurisdiction does not align with the federal legislative jurisdiction. The overbreadth of these effects exacerbates the constitutional frailties of the scheme's decision-making functions, he said. So what this means specifically, so when Mickey Amory says that the government made a couple of unconsequential changes to try to get around, no. The Supreme Court in the reference said these two specific things actually are unconstitutional. So you have to make some modifications. The court maybe even suggested modifications that could be made. Or said, or you need to make modifications that would achieve this. For example, RCMP, you need to make a modification on how you do this if this happens again, where you have somebody independent with authority looking at the information and saying, yes, this is okay to get this information. Oh, okay. Cool. Noted. We'll do that next time. Or with the Supreme Court on the pipelines thing, federal government, you need to consult more meaningfully with Indigenous communities in, I guess, not telling you how, what specifically you need to do, but you definitely need to consult more meaningfully. So what do? You either say no and fight it, or you say, okay, and you go and consult more meaningfully. Right? So the federal government made some changes, it would seem, to comply with the reference. that the government of Alberta is now calling inconsequential things in order to get around the Supreme Court. But this particular law that they've just passed is an inconsequential thing to get around the federal legislation jurisdiction. It's so Gables. It's so Gables.
Mm.
To finish off, Chief Justice Wagner wrote, "Environmental protection remains one of today's most pressing challenges. To meet this challenge, Parliament has the power to enact a scheme of environmental assessment. Parliament also has the duty, however, to act within the enduring division of powers framework laid out in the Constitution. Moreover, the Chief Justice noted that it is open to Parliament and the provincial legislatures to exercise their respective powers over the environment harmoniously in the spirit of cooperative federalism," adding that, quote, "both levels of government can exercise leadership in environmental protection and ensure the continued health of our shared environment." Does this press conference seem to you to have been delivered in a spirit of cooperative federalism, in a manner such that we would be proposing exercising our powers harmoniously? Held right before the new Prime Minister comes to have a meeting with her. Hey, we're going to pass a law that suggests that we can arrest authorities from the federal government who are coming to collect data, because that data is ours now.
It's not how it works.
We'll be doing that.
She really wants to be an American, doesn't she? She wants to join the U.S. Here's a tweet from Sherry DeNova just at 4 a.m. today. So Sherry was up early. "When Quebec defends Canada and Alberta doesn't, you know something has fundamentally shifted in this country." Now, I know there are millions of Albertans who never want to be anything but Canadian and are Canadians first. Millions of Albertans. Unfortunately, the one speaking for them right now is not defending our nation, is not defending Canada, is trying to sell us out. We will not for export tariffs on our oil. You don't get to determine that, Danielle. It's not a dictatorship, it's a democracy, and the federal government sets those standards. Maybe we should just start selling it to the U.S. at full price.
Maybe.
No more discount. No more discount for you. No more discount. I mean, realistically, we could do that because according to Trump, the USMCA or the CUSMCA or whatever you want to call it this week, NAFTA 2.0,
USMCA
is the worst trade deal ever signed, and they're getting robbed, except he signed it in 2018, and at the time he touted it as the greatest deal ever signed in history.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I got something for that for you later.
Please explain to me. Please explain something to me. The man is demented. We know this. He brags about the deal he signed 7 years ago and now says it's the worst deal in history and wants to renegotiate because they have a trade deficit with us because they buy so much oil and gas. They pay us $200 billion more than we pay them because it's trade. When you're trading, sometimes you need more of a product than you have, and you buy it from your trading partner, and we have plenty of it, so we're happy to sell it to you. And you know what? Because you're a good trading partner and a good neighbor, we'll sell it to you at deeply discounted rates, well below market value. We'll do this because we're good friends and neighbors. And then you say we're ripping you off? Oh boy, you about to find out. Why don't we charge you full market value and put a 25% tariff on top of it? Then you're really getting ripped off. He would blow a gasket at that. Oh, I say we do it. Charge them full market value for our oil and put a 25% tariff on top of it. And see how quickly he bends over. Or bends the knee. I guess I should say bends the knee. But you know.
Yeah, I know. So, Danielle Smith had that press conference. Then she met with Marc Carney. And then she put out that screed that you read.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the screed alone is a sign that that meeting did not go well for her.
Oh, yeah.
But I just sent you something, Mr. Grizzly. And about the time...
Jesus, that's a long link.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't know why the link is that long.
Shit. It's like 20 lines.
It's ridiculous.
Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 lines on a 34-inch widescreen curved monitor. 11 lines of text for the URL. It's just insane.
It's insane. But this is because they have their own server, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that they can control what ads are on their own page.
They have 100% control, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is
This is
like
high politics. Yeah. Here's a sign, Mr. Grizzly. If you would read the headline.
Marc Carney will maintain oil and gas emissions cap, Environment Minister says. The Liberals introduced draft regulations back in November that require producers to cut emissions by about 1/3 over the next 8 years.
So, around the time that Danielle Smith is putting out that big screed, Canadian Press, 2:21 p.m. This is coming out, and Marc Carney doesn't even say it himself. He has the Environment Minister do it. Yeah, Danielle. This was a lovely piece of constrapiece theatre that you've put on. But now, darling Boo Boo Kitty, take a look and eat this. By the Canadian Press. Environment Minister Terry Dogood, oh, I like this in this case, says a Marc Carney government will maintain a cap on oil and gas production emissions, despite your Danielle. In my editorial edition. In an interview with the Canadian Press, Dogood says Canada wants the energy, but not the pollution that comes with its production. Danielle, we want your energy. We love your energy. We would love to do things with your energy, but you've got to control the pollution. The Liberals introduced draft regulations back in November that require producers to cut emissions by about 1/3 over the next 8 years. The federal government also proposed a cap-and-trade system, although the plan was criticized by Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and the energy sector. This week, a group of top energy executives called on the leaders of the 4 main federal political parties to declare a Canadian energy crisis and scrap the emissions cap. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has vowed to end the cap and has criticized Carney on social media over his position on it. So literally, no more announcement then. The government will maintain the cap on oil and gas productions. Thank you. Click. So big press conference, big screed after a whole meeting. And the response was, yawn, click, goodbye. She must be raging.
Oh, I have no doubt whatsoever.
And she is raging for more than one reason, because it seems that things are not going very well for her. Even within her own party. Number one, while Marc Carney was in Edmonton, it turns out that, when I predicted that he would be having some star candidates just suddenly throwing themselves into it? The mayor of Edmonton, Mr. Sohi, remember? The man who was a bus driver?
Yes. Who was a former member of parliament?
Yes. Well, it seems that he has not announced yet whether or not he's going to run for mayor again in some municipal elections that are coming up relatively soon. And it seems that he might be announcing his candidacy to run again, especially since the polling aggregators are showing that the Liberals could pick up maybe to 6 or 7 seats in Alberta this time, instead of just 1 or 2. That might mean a few more for Edmonton. So Minister Sohi former Minister Sohi is back in the game. And then Mr. Carney picked up a couple of other people, 3 or 4 other people, bigger names that suddenly announced that, oh yes, they are going to be running for the Liberals. The people are suddenly coming. Interesting. Last night, Danielle Smith went to something later on and said, "What a night in Edmonton! A record-breaking 1,500 incredible Albertans came together for the largest UCP event in the city's history. Edmonton's conservative movement is strong, united, and growing. We're building a stronger future for the city with major investments in jobs, infrastructure, healthcare, and downtown revitalization. Thank you, everyone who made this event such a success." It's like, no, you're not doing that. By this time next year, you probably won't even be premier, boo-boo kitty. How many caucus members will you lose before the federal election is over?
Well, isn't the RCMP investigating her?
Yeah. And, well, not only is that, but it seems, now, remember they had Mr. Peter Gunter, I think it is, or Guthrie? One of their ministers quit cabinet, right? Based on the AHS stuff, suggesting that there was probably more going on in other departments. Well, it would seem that somebody, well, not somebody else left caucus, but somebody this time was booted from caucus. Someone got a little inconvenient for Danielle Smith, and they had to be booted from caucus. And then something very, very interesting happened. Mr. Grizzly, I'm sending you a clip.
I'll be right back. I need a coffee desperately.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Absolutely. Because when we're watching these conservative movements, one of the questions that we always ask ourselves, those of us who are on the other side of the spectrum, is why doesn't the caucus ever revolt? Right, and I should say ever revolt, because they revolted against Jason Kenney. But why don't they really revolt? And why do they just allow themselves to be brought to the mic and say these ridiculous things or defend these notions that are just, well, for lack of a better word, that are just not on? Well, MLA Scott Sinclair rose in the legislature yesterday to speak. Now, Scott Sinclair was a UCP MLA and was removed from caucus. So this is his first address in the legislature. Now, I would suggest that he might be sitting as an independent. I will check that here. According to the CBC, yes, now sits as an independent. Independents don't have as much right to talk in the legislature. They almost have to be given permission by the legislature. It's something that often happened to Elizabeth May as well. She's not an independent, but as a leader of a party that does not have official status because she has 2 seats, she has fewer privileges in Parliament, and sometimes when she wants to rise in the House of Commons, I'm not sure if it's sometimes or pretty much all the time, it has to be agreed upon, I think, by a majority of the legislature. And she has been denied a couple of times. Right? So for him to be able to speak in the first place and ask, he had to have been granted permission. Well, it seems that the NDP contingent in the legislature did actually allow this person the rights. I'm not sure how the vote has to go if it's a majority, but they did not block it. He's a rural United Conservative Party backbencher who was kicked out of caucus for threatening to vote against the Alberta government's budget, saying he's disappointed, but wasn't ruling out a return to the party. Now, this happened on March 11th. Scott Sinclair now sits as an independent legislature member for Lesser Slave Lake, and he said last week that he couldn't support the proposed budget. He said it needlessly gives more to Edmonton and Calgary than to rural communities like his, while also forecasting significant deficits. Sinclair said Monday he was devastated that the UCP caucus expelled him, as he thought there was still time for conversations. Quote, "I was basically given an ultimatum and a deadline to support the budget," Sinclair said. "I was told that Premier Danielle Smith would remove me herself, and then I think on Friday that changed and I was voted out by my peers. I thought we had some more time before we had to make a decision like that. Chief Government Whip Shane Getson said Friday that Sinclair has every right to vote against the budget, but won't be allowed to do so while sitting under the UCP banner. Under parliamentary convention, a budget vote is a confidence vote, meaning that if it fails in the legislature, it's expected the government would trigger an election. All government MLAs are expected to vote in favor of the tabled budget. Sinclair said he was also frustrated that he wasn't given an opportunity to defend himself in front of caucus before he was ousted. Make an example out of him, right? Other caucus members were given that chance when they were on the chopping block, including former Infrastructure Minister Peter Guthrie, Sinclair said. Guthrie publicly resigned from his cabinet post in February, calling out Smith and the rest of cabinet for not sharing his concerns about government-wide procurement issues amid allegations of government corruption and interference in medical contracts. Guthrie, who also called for Alberta Health Minister Adriana Lagrange to be removed from her role, remains in the UCP caucus, but sits as a backbencher with no government duties. Sinclair says he stands by his budget concerns, especially $183 million in capital funding destined for projects with the Edmonton Oilers hockey team, rather than investments in rural healthcare and highway safety improvements in his writing. He said other UCP backbenchers might share his concerns about the government's spending priorities. Oh, they do. And I'm not asking anybody to jump in the foxhole with me, Sinclair added. Sinclair also said feedback he's received from his constituents have been overwhelmingly positive. Quote, "It's the most popular I've ever been there," he said. "I think regular people who don't follow politics too much are relieved to hear somebody finally say something like this and speak for regular people. If it's seen as it was a rookie move politically, I still think I'm a pretty good MLA, at least people can say that I haven't changed since becoming a politician." He said he has no intention of crossing the floor to the opposition NDP. He added that he has spoken with the Premier since being ousted, and he hopes to keep the lines of communication open. In the House, Sinclair now sits across the aisle from the UCP on the NDP side. With him as an independent, the UCP have 48 of the 87 seats. The NDP have 37, and there is one vacancy. Now, Mr. Grizzly, if you would show the clip, because when I saw this clip, my first thought was, oh, so they can.
What clip? Oh, this one.
Did it not go to you?
Yeah. No, I have it.
Okay. So I'm sitting there like, oh, wait a minute. So they can do the job. They can speak out against the government and can advocate for their constituents. It's just that they choose not to.
Mr. Speaker, healthcare in Lesser Slave Lake has hit rock bottom. While the Minister and the Premier continue to refocus and play musical chairs with AHS CEOs and boards that they've handpicked and fired, meanwhile, we can't get a straight answer on the helicopter pad for the High Prairie Hospital. The community's even offered money for most of the costs themselves. They're simply asking for permission from AHS, but they continue to be ignored. To the Minister of Health today, when can the High Prairie Hospital expect to finally get this helicopter pad approved?
Sorry for the low volume. That's as loud as I could make it, unfortunately. It was the source material. It was just really low.
Too low. So basically, while the government is busy playing musical chairs here with the AHS, there are medical facilities in my area that need a helipad. When's it coming? Amazing he was not allowed to ask that question as a member of the UCP caucus. I have a feeling that Danielle Smith is going to be losing a few more caucus members at some point. Now, of course, he voted against the budget, which means, of course, he had to be removed. I mean, it's one of those cardinal sins. Like, if you're a member of a government, you can't vote against the budget and still expect to remain in the party. It's pretty standard fare. But one resigned on his own, and one had a problem with how Danielle Smith is spreading the money. All the rural districts from which she gets the majority of her support, she's got nothing for them. She'd rather put that $183 million to help millionaires who own big hockey franchises in Edmonton place where she doesn't really get many seats, rather than spending it on health for the people who got her where she is. I would be a little upset at that as an MLA myself.
Well,
just saying. Daniel, it's not going well for Danny. I'm sorry, just the voice. That laugh. Got him. Mr. Grizzly, do you have anything?
I have a few things. Some international news here. Both Britain, Germany, and Denmark have issued travel warnings for their citizens about going to the United States of America. That's pretty prescient. Donald Trump, well, I mean, it's never ends with this guy, but he posted this to Truth Social. I'll put it on the screen and read it because this is like, I'm sorry, what? I look forward to watching the sick terrorist thugs get a 20-year jail sentences for what they are doing to Elon Musk and Tesla. Perhaps they could serve them in the prisons of El Salvador, which have become so recently famous for such lovely conditions. I'm playing the squeeze box that he always plays when he talks, by the way. So he wants
the El Salvador thing.
If you get caught vandalizing a Tesla vehicle, he will give you a 20-year sentence and wants to send you to El Salvador.
Yeah, he made a deal with El Salvador that El Salvador will take some U.S. prisoners when they don't. He was trying to do the thing at Guantanamo, but it didn't really work out for him. He kind of got wrapped on the nose for that. So, hey, El Salvador, you want to make some money? You want to put in jail people that to whom we don't want to give due process?
Mm-hmm.
And then, when you're putting them in the cop car, they always put their hand on their head. Don't be too nice.
Let it get
those lovely conditions down in El Salvador.
I got to work on my Trump impersonation. It wasn't very good. I'll try and get it better. This one from Robert Fife on Power and Politics. I don't know if you've seen this, but this is what we would call in the industry scathing. Robert Fife, who's rather partisan. Let's not split hairs about that. He's pretty impassioned here. Watch this.
More expensive. And Bob, if you read the memo that came out from Jenny Byrne saying cost is an issue and people can deploy, it's a coverage plan that
that's not true.
Look, I know, but
it's absolutely not true. It's a lie. We pay our way, and responsible news organizations like the Globe Mail and the CBC and CTV and Canadian Press and La Presse will pay whatever it costs to cover these election campaigns. What they're doing is anti-democratic. Elections are an opportunity to put leaders to the test. And we are not going to be able to follow the ebb and flow of this campaign and explain to people when he's doing a good job and when he's in trouble or when the campaign seems to be on the rise or when it's sinking. You can't do that driving around in a car trying to get to one event to another. It's very disappointing, it's sort of right out of the Trump playbook, because that Rebel News, which they like, which chases liberal politicians around and yells in their faces, will have an opportunity to be asking the questions that many of us are not going to be able to ask because we won't be able to get there.
Okay.
You've lost Fife. That is telling. And he's pissed, and rightfully so.
Yes, because say what you want about Bob Fife.
I agree with him. I agree with him. He's right.
Yes. Because say what you want about Bob Fife about the way he wields the knife when it comes to respect for the institution of journalism.
He does respect it. That's not up for debate.
Right?
It's never been up for debate.
Never been up for debate. So you got Bob Fife calling this out as undemocratic. And see, and now here's the thing, that the gaslighting, right? They don't pay their own way. It's like $1,500 a day, whatnot. You had Hélène Buzzetti from Radio-Canada actually making the same thing in French the other day on the web. It's like, no, we definitely pay our way. And this person was going, well, so $1,500 a day, it's taxpayers paying that, and it's not you paying that because she works for Radio Canada, and Radio Canada is a crown corporation. Okay. But let's assume that for them, that argument applies. Not for private media, but for CBC and Radio Canada. You do realize that we're dealing with a context where a political party is charging a crown corporation for the right to cover them?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that seem a little weird?
Yeah.
I can understand them charging CTV and whatnot, but why would a political party charge a crown corporation? Oh yeah, because a political party is a private corporation. Okay, number one. Number two, what are the odds that CBC and Radio Canada would be spending that $1,500 or $3,000 a day anyway, whether they're on the bus or not, to cover? So the money is being spent anyway. Taxpayers are on the hook for what CBC and Radio Canada spend to cover the election, whether they buy a seat on the bus or get there on their own. Number three, because of bulk buying and economies of scale, what do you think are the odds that it is less expensive for the taxpayer, by which you claim to be so worried about, for CBC and Radio Canada to buy space on that bus than to make all those decisions individually, one-on-one, in reservations? The argument doesn't make sense. Number two, got Dimitri Soudas coming up. Don't pretend that you don't, like, CBC and Radio Canada has offices all over the country. You can get anywhere you need to. Don't pretend. Like, yeah, let's compare apples to watermelon. I was going to say apples to oranges, but that's a little bit on note given that Pierre likes apples. But this is apples to watermelons.
Okay. I can go.
Because as Bob Fife there's not just the announcement. What's going on in the campaign? What's the vibe? Mm-hmm. Does the party seem together? Does the party seem coordinated? Is there infighting? What things are they talking about this evening when they had the assessment of how the day went? What did they say? You lose all that. You get the announcement and you lose all the flavor, all the context, all the flavor, all the color, all the texture, all the things that you need to understand. You just get the straight announcement if you can get there. And yes, CBC has more means than others to get there. But if you don't, then you just get the feed that's sent to you by the Conservative Party of Canada, and edited and structured the way that they would like it, from all the camera angles you would like. And remember, Pierre's very cinematic, right? Dimitri Soudas wants you to believe that because CBC, Radio Canada, has the means to get to the places, that it's not real, not true. It's a big lie.
Mm-hmm.
But Bob Fife just told you how it's different.
Yes.
They're denying us. And again, they fundraise, they're a private corporation, but their fundraising their fundraising is very heavily subsidized by us. We actually pay for them to tell us you're not allowed to get a sense of the color and texture and flavor of our campaign. Maybe a nifty way around that is that political donation tax credits are not given to political parties that do not show up to debates and do not allow media to be embedded on their campaigns. If you are not going to give us what we, the taxpayers, have paid for by subsidizing those political donation tax credits, maybe you do not deserve those political donation tax credits. And given that the Conservative Party raises money hand over fist, those political donation tax credits are millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
If they are willing to forego those millions and millions and millions of dollars, then sure, maybe
Some tells me they won't.
For debates. But maybe we shouldn't make that a condition. Put it in the elections law. How many candidate debates and how many debates and what percentage did you participate in? It doesn't have to be 100% because somebody might be sick one day and miss it or have a family emergency. That happens. But a broad policy, like in the last election in Ontario, no local candidates go to any debates whatsoever. Really? Really? In a 24-hour news cycle, media, no, you're not allowed to be with us on the campaign 24. Really? Really? Okay. I would love, again, I know it doesn't put food on the table. I know it doesn't build a school. I know it doesn't build a hospital. But the party that campaigns on making sure that me as a citizen am allowed to know what the fuck my government is doing,
Yeah.
gets very, very serious consideration for my vote. And those who do not are instantly disqualified. Stop fucking with my right to cast an informed vote. Stop fucking with it.
They don't look. Here's the thing. I'll say it. I've said it many times. They are Christian evangelical reformists. They are not progressives. They are not conservatives. They are Reform Party stalwarts. They do not want you to make an informed decision. They do not want to govern. They want to rule over you. They want to rule over your body and your mind. These are not good people. I've said this I don't know how many times, and I'll continue to say it until people start to understand what is really happening in this country. These are not right-wingers. These are Christian reformists, dominionists. They believe that their way is the only way, and you don't get a say.
Yeah. No.
Period.
Yeah.
As evidenced by the fact that they won't allow media to travel with them in the upcoming election, whenever that may be. They're trying to control the message so much so that how soon before we get doublespeak? It's already happening. But how soon before it becomes the standard nomenclature?
Yeah.
The language of the street, doublespeak.
Hmm.
When the conservative government, the Reform Party, starts to strip you of your rights. He has said time and time again, Pierre Poilievre says, we won't make any laws to take away a woman's right to make a choice about her body. Except he also wouldn't block his backbenchers from trying to table legislation to bring about the end to a woman's right to make a choice about her body. See, here's the thing. You do not have to be for or pro-abortion to support a woman's bodily autonomy. You could be dead set against abortion for yourself. You don't get to decide what somebody else gets to do. You are not a supreme being. You are merely a tax-paying citizen of this nation, which means that you do not get to dictate. Nor does anybody else.
Right.
You don't. It's period. And if you have a problem with that, you have a problem with me. And millions like me.
Mm-hmm.
We do not, cannot, nor will we ever allow any government to rob a woman of her bodily autonomy, because that is a slippery slope. They take away that right, what's next? They'll end same-sex marriage. You know damn well they will. They will do what Trump did and said there's only two genders assigned at conception. Okay, well, then we're all trans men, because at conception, everyone is female. You know they're going to do this. And they're trying to control everything. They won't let the media have access to them. And the media that they do let have access to them, the media, I use that in a very lightweight term, are not legacy media. These are not vetted individuals. These are not vetted institutions. These are things like True North and Juno and Rebel and, the ones that are favorited by us, the ones that put us in the light we want to be in. That's
the
not
ones
reporting.
We're willing,
but that's
the
not
ones we're
reporting.
willing
That's
to
PR
subsidize.
spin.
Yeah. The ones they are willing to subsidize, but don't call it buying propaganda.
Yeah.
Or favorable coverage. No, don't call it that. You only call that when liberals do it. When we do it, we're increasing freedom of speech because we're conservatives and we're unable to say freedom of expression.
Yes.
For some reason. Now, Mr. Grizzly, I told you I said I'd have something for you because you frequently refer the current president, unfortunately, of the United States and what he has to say. This is literally from the speech he delivered when the deal was signed. I also want to thank President Peña Nieto of Mexico, who we had a few disagreements, but I really like him a lot. I think he might like me. I'm not sure, but I think he's a terrific person, and he'll be leaving soon, but he's really done a good job, and a wonderful, wonderful person. And the Mexican president-elect, Lopez Obrador, who has given his support to this agreement, and we're developing a really good relationship, which I think is very important for our country, frankly, and for Mexico. And so they worked together on this. This was done by both. I said, look, I don't want to sign an agreement, and then a new president comes in and they don't like it, and we have difficulty. They worked very much together on it, and I appreciate it from both. I have to certainly give my highest regards to Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. A lot of stories came out about Justin and I having difficulty together, and we did over the trade deal, but I'll tell you, it's turned out to be a very, very good deal for both, and a very, very good deal for all three. It puts us in a position that we've never been in before. It's very good when you look at the world and what the world is doing, and when you look at the unfair trade practices that countries are using against the United States. This is a terrific deal for all of us. Once approved by Congress, this new deal will be the most modern, up-to-date, and balanced trade agreement in the history of our country, with the most advanced protections for workers ever developed. But gee, those nasty Canadians, now we're subsidizing to $200 billion a year. Oh, yeah. Well, it's amazing how quickly it became unbalanced. If you look at the reviews, people say that would normally not, under any circumstances, say good things because automatically they have to say bad. Even some Democrats say, that's amazing. We had some, they haven't been given the sound bites yet, I guess, Mike, but actually you had some Democrats say, this is really amazing if you really got all of that. But by tomorrow, I would suspect they'll change their tune. But that's okay because people know how good it is. It's an amazing deal for a lot of people. Likewise, it will be the most advanced trade deal in the world with ambitious provisions on the digital economy, patents, very important, financial services, and other areas where the United States has a strong competitive advantage. Mexico and Canada have agreed to strong new labor protections, environmental protections, and new protections for intellectual property. So important. This new deal is an especially great victory for our farmers, who you're now screwing. And then it just goes on and on and on. But he loved it.
Anybody else need a whiskey?
He even loved Justin.
Yeah. He loves it when it benefits him, and he hates it when it doesn't benefit him, even though he signed the deal and said it was the greatest thing ever. You know, many people are saying it's the greatest deal ever negotiated. Many people. Is many people a person you know in your organization? Is that the name of a person? Many
Hello,
people?
People. Many people. My name is People. Many people.
It's like Doug Ford and his skidoo. The name of his skidoo is 24/7. Or on the phone, sorry. He's on the phone. The name of his skidoo is the phone. I'm on the phone 24/7.
Yep.
That's the name of his boat at his cottage. The phone. I'm on the phone 24/7 when I'm at the cottage.
And I'm like listening, go through this landmark agreement. This is truly extraordinary agreement. And we formed a great partnership with Mexico and Canada.
A partnership that has been around for how long? Trying to claim that he just created something out of thin air that's been there.
So yeah. Just figured I'd go to the horse's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
We do indeed.
Alrighty, kids and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. really helps us when you do. Now, if you would like to help us out, for example, by not wanting to miss an episode of the show through podcast version, you scan that QR code there, and that will bring you right to our pod page. That's podpage.com/The True North Eager Beaver, with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you click on subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, zip directly to you. Magic, just like that. Magic. Now, if you would like to support us in yet another way, well, hey, Kits, Cassie, and Elaine have a suggestion for you. Why not surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page? And we have some buttons there, like, share, and subscribe. If you click them, it really helps us out with the algorithm and helps us grow. So thank you very much for that. Now, if you would like to help us in other ways, well, spring has sprung, and maybe Mr. Grizzly will be trying. Maybe he needs a new red Speedo, and maybe I need new tiny shorts for Pride season. If you would like to help us, help your favorite animated heroes, Speedo Man and Tiny Shorts. Speedo Man, Tiny Shorts, bringing you the news reports. If you can,
that's downtown Calgary.
Have a little donation to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund, and you can find that at our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And if you leave a little coinage there, or you can also get there by that QR code that's by Mr. Grizzly's head there. If you leave a little coinage there, well, you'll earn our undying gratitude, and your IQ will automatically go up by 12 points. It's science again. Beaverton, the Beaverton Labs, the Beaver Lodge Labs have done the science, and it's not Danielle Smith science. Donate, you'll be smarter. It just happens. Now, because democracy is something that you do, remember that there's the Quebec Liberal leadership race, so you need to find out more about your candidates. And there's a by-election coming up in provincial by-election in Manitoba, but as well, again, Kids and Cubs, we are asking you, if you can, to please write your MPs and your senators and ask about media ownership laws, and that the government can do something about that. And a couple of weeks ago, I was trying to give you the link to where you can find out whether or not the media that you would like to subscribe to, because there is a tax credit. So if you want to support media, particularly local media, they might be. If you subscribe, then you can declare on your taxes and get some type of deduction for it. But it's not all media; it's certain ones, and I couldn't share the link with you because the link was too long. And I believe it might have been Kit Jillian, if I'm not mistaken, that suggested a website to me called Tiny URL, which I went to, and I was able to enter that one. Yeah,
I've been using that one for years.
Yeah, I did not know about it, so I did that.
There's also Bitly as well.
Oh, okay. So I did that, and just included it in the chat here for you, Kits and Cubs. So that would be the list that you can consult to figure out whether or not any media in your area that you would like to support with your dollar, and of course get a rebate, is on the list and eligible. So please practice some democracy and do that. Would really, really appreciate it, because we need more well-informed. So and better quality journalism. And we do have the sources like the Walrus and the Trillium, and many of them that are doing really, really good jobs, but not well enough known, and could definitely use a boost in their subscriber base. And even your local one, remember, like the local newspaper in Sudbury did a really, really good job lately when Pierre was in that area, bringing us the local stuff. So support your local journalism, all right? And those who do in-depth quality and really care about not only giving you facts, but giving you some sound analysis to help you understand the information that you're getting as well. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom?
Yes. Make sure to take your dog out as soon as possible so that they don't pee on the floor.
Oh, no, did that happen?
No, but she's dancing.
Okay.
So,
okay.
yeah.
So Mr. Grizzly, then, let's give Lola some relief and please cue the cock. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
Welcome to the place where everyone knows your name, where everyone's your friend, where good times are had by all. Sit back, relax, pour yourself a beverage and enjoy our company. I know we'll certainly enjoy yours. Welcome to the True North Eager Beaver Pubcast. Once a month, we gather at the Lieutenant's Pump at 361 Elgin Street in downtown Ottawa, Canada's capital city, bringing you joy and happiness all day long.